The gravel road ended where the forest began, a line of towering pines swaying like sentinels, their branches whispering against the late summer wind. My cousin Amira stepped out of the car first, stretching her arms as if to shake off the weight of the city. The air smelled of resin and damp soil, clean and sharp. I killed the engine, and silence fell around us, heavy, deliberate, almost sacred. We had driven 3 hours to reach our grandfather's old property, a small clearing where his cabin had stood before time and weather reduced it to a skeleton of beams. The idea was hers, to spend one night out here, no phones, no signals, no noise except the forest itself. I agreed, though not because I needed the quiet. I agreed because she had asked, and lately, I hadn't known how to tell her no. Amira looked different than I remembered. Her eyes, once quick to laugh, carried a restless glint, the kind that comes from sleepless nights and words left unsaid. She'd told me over the phone she needed to get away, but the way she said it made it sound like she was running, not retreating. I didn't ask from what. Families in small towns have a talent for silence when it comes to pain. We unpacked in near wordlessness. The tent went up by instinct, the same way we'd done as children during summers here, only then, our laughter used to drown the forest's whispers. Now, the trees seemed to lean closer, listening. The day dimmed early, the light fading to copper as the sun sank behind the ridge. I gathered wood, pretending not to notice Amira staring into the fire pit, lost in thought. When the first flames caught, she finally spoke. Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life? The question hung between us, fragile as smoke. Sometimes, I said, feeding another branch into the fire. Usually when I realize how far I've drifted from who I used to be. She smiled faintly, not from amusement, but recognition. I feel that every morning lately. I wanted to ask about her husband then, the argument I'd overheard her mention to her sister last week, the reason she'd left home so suddenly. But I didn't. I told myself I was giving her space, though part of me feared what the answer might reveal. As night crept in, the forest came alive, a symphony of insects, the crackle of burning pine, the far-off hoot of an owl. Amira pulled her jacket tight. It feels like this place remembers us, she murmured. Maybe it does, I said. Maybe it remembers everything. For a long time, we sat in silence, the fire painting her face in shifting amber. Then, faintly, from somewhere beyond the trees, came a whisper, low, indistinct, almost human. Amira looked up sharply. Did you hear that? I nodded, though I wasn't sure if what I heard came from the forest or from within us. The night was just beginning. The whisper came again, faint and deliberate, threading through the trees like a secret too patient to die. We froze beside the fire, the glow trembling against our faces. For a heartbeat, I thought it might be wind slipping through hollow bark, but wind didn't carry words. Maybe it's an animal, I said, though I didn't believe it. Amira didn't answer. Her gaze stayed fixed on the dark beyond the tree line. Then she exhaled, a long, unsteady breath, and sat back down. It's fine, she murmured. The forest always sounded alive when we were kids. Remember how we used to pretend it talked to us? I smiled faintly. You said it was grandfather watching. She nodded. He used to say this place listens. That it hears what we won't say out loud. Her voice trembled on the last word. For a moment, I saw past her calm, saw the exhaustion in her shoulders, the tightness around her eyes. She hadn't come here to camp. She'd come to confess, even if she didn't know it yet. The fire cracked softly, a dry twig giving into heat. I didn't tell you everything, she said finally. About why I left. I stayed silent. He cheated on me, she whispered. I caught him last week. The words came out flat, as if they'd been rehearsed too many times. She stared at the flames, expression unreadable. With someone we both knew. Someone I introduced him to. I thought if I could just leave, just disappear for a while, maybe I'd stop feeling humiliated. The honesty hit harder than I expected. I wanted to reach out, to bridge the tiny distance between us, but I didn't. The forest seemed to lean closer, eavesdropping. I'm sorry, I said quietly. You didn't deserve that. She gave a bitter laugh. No one ever does. But here's the truth, part of me wanted to hurt him back. To prove I could. Her eyes met mine then, sharp, glinting in the firelight. The air thickened, heavy with things that should never be spoken. We'd grown up like siblings, inseparable in our youth, drifting apart only when her marriage built a wall neither of us dared approach. Yet sitting there, with pain and night pressing in from all sides, I could feel the boundary shifting, fragile, dangerous. Amira, I said, forcing calm into my voice, you don't need to prove anything. Not like that. She looked away. You don't understand. Maybe I do. The forest answered with another whisper, softer this time, like breath against an ear. We both turned, eyes searching the darkness. Who's there? I called out, but only the wind replied. When I turned back, Amira's face had softened. Maybe it's the forest listening again, she said. Maybe it knows what we're thinking. The words lingered between us, terrifying in their truth. Because what we were thinking, what I was feeling, wasn't something the forest should ever hear. The fire burned low, its glow shrinking into coals. Beyond the small circle of light, the forest pressed in, vast, breathing, alive. Every shadow seemed to move, every rustle felt intentional. I threw another branch into the flames, but the sound that came next wasn't the crack of wood. It was footsteps, slow, deliberate, circling. Amira stiffened beside me. It's not an animal, she whispered. I reached for the flashlight, the beam slicing through smoke and branches. Nothing. Just trees and darkness layered so deep it looked solid. Yet the sound continued, crunch, pause, crunch, weaving around us like a predator's patience. Stay close, I said. We stepped away from the fire's comfort, the flashlight trembling in my grip. The forest swallowed the light almost greedily, each tree trunk absorbing its reach. The whispers returned, faint but clearer now, words curling through the air, echoing Amira's name. Then another voice, a man's, repeating it. Her husband's voice. Amira clutched my arm. That's not possible. But the sound was unmistakable. It carried the same rhythm, the same quiet authority he always used, the tone that demanded obedience. It came from deeper in the woods, where the mist had thickened. Don't, I said as she took a step forward. It's not real. Her voice trembled. Then what is it? I didn't know. The rational part of me screamed to turn back, but something stronger, curiosity, defiance, maybe guilt, pushed us onward. The ground softened underfoot, the air damp with decay. Then, through the mist, the flashlight caught something, a shape carved into a tree. 2 names. Ours. Side by side, inside a crooked heart. I remembered carving it years ago, a childish gesture during one of our last summers here. I hadn't thought of it since. But now, beneath our names, someone had etched a fresh word, betrayal. Amira gasped. Who did this? Before I could answer, the whispers swelled again, not from the trees this time, but from within my own mind. Fragments of memory, of moments I'd buried, how I used to watch her before she married, how I'd envied her husband, how part of me still wanted what I shouldn't. The forest wasn't haunting us. It was showing us what we carried inside. I dropped the flashlight, the beam rolling across damp leaves. Amira knelt to pick it up, her face pale in the shifting light. It's testing us, she said quietly. It's showing us what we almost became. Somewhere beyond, a low groan of wind moved through the trees, and the whispers fell silent. The air cleared, leaving only the rhythmic crackle of our dying fire in the distance. Amira looked at me, eyes wet but calm. Let's go back, she said. We've seen enough. We walked in silence, the forest watching. And though nothing followed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something unseen had judged us, and, for now, let us go. By the time we reached the clearing, the fire had nearly died. Only a thin ribbon of smoke curled upward, fading into the night's last breath. Amira sat down beside the embers, hugging her knees, eyes fixed on the faint light growing between the trees. Dawn was coming, slow, hesitant, like the forest itself needed to decide whether we deserved it. Neither of us spoke for a while. The silence wasn't heavy anymore, it was restorative, as if the forest had wrung everything out of us, fear, guilt, longing, and left only what was true. When the first sliver of gold broke through the mist, Amira whispered, I thought I came here to forget him. But I think I came here to forget myself. I turned to her. You didn't forget. You just got lost. She gave a faint, tired smile. I almost made another mistake. I wanted to hurt him the way he hurt me. I thought maybe if someone saw me, really saw me, it would fix something. Her eyes flicked toward me, and for a fleeting second, I saw the echo of last night's temptation, softened now into something sad and human. But it wouldn't have fixed anything, would it? No, I said quietly. It would have broken more. She nodded. The forest knew that before I did. The wind stirred, scattering ash over our boots, as if agreeing. Around us, morning unspooled slowly, light catching on spider webs, dew trembling on moss, birds beginning their first tentative calls. The forest that had seemed cruel hours ago now looked ancient and merciful. I rose and began dismantling the tent, my movements deliberate, grounding. Maybe the whispers weren't ghosts, I said. Maybe it was just us, our conscience, echoing back. Maybe, she said, helping me fold the fabric. Or maybe the forest just has a way of reminding people what they are. Quote, we finished packing as sunlight flooded the clearing. The trees no longer loomed, they simply stood, silent witnesses to the night we'd survived. As we walked toward the car, Amira paused at the edge of the woods. I think I'm going to talk to him, she said. Not to forgive him, just to end it properly. That's brave, I told her. No, she replied softly. It's necessary. For a moment, she looked back into the forest, that vast cathedral of memory and warning, and then she turned away. The road stretched ahead, pale and empty, leading back to a world where choices would matter again. When we finally drove off, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The trees stood still, golden in the dawn, and the clearing was just a patch of earth and ash. Yet I could have sworn I heard one last whisper, light as breath, you passed. And in that moment, I understood. The forest hadn't tried to frighten us. It had tried to save us, from the parts of ourselves we were too afraid to face.